Get your coffee. Let me summarize the news. The headlines look like this: Trump, 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 Hillary has bad health. Yeah, cast me to the big TV. Come on, everybody. Stop looking at me on small screens. Put me on the big screens. Get your Apple TV. Get your Chromecast. Tips on improving your awful memory. I hear practice helps. Apparently, memory is something that you can improve with practice. There are also lots of memory tricks, mnemonics. If you search Amazon.com for books on memory, there's lots of tricks. What do I think about Trump challenging on Hillary's health records? Well, I gotta say I was surprised because I didn't think he would want to release his own. But it could be that he's bluffing. He may already know that she's not going to release hers. So by making the offer, he takes the winning position. So there are probably two ways that Clinton can lose with Trump's challenge to produce her health records, saying he will do the same. One of the ways that Clinton can lose is by not releasing her health records, because it makes her look like she's hiding something. The second way she can lose is by releasing her health records, because then you'll know she was hiding something, probably. And if you think about it, why do people not release their health records? Is it because they're so healthy? No. But it does seem to me like there ought to be some middle ground where they agree to release the records after maybe having a team of 3 doctors scrub out anything that's, unimportant but embarrassing. So if somebody has toe fungus, don't need to know it, you can take that out. As long as, let's say, 3 independent doctors agreed that that doesn't belong in the record because it's not relevant to the public. I don't listen to vaporware. I don't know what that is. Could they be doctored? Yes, they could. But here's the thing. If I would think that if a candidate doctored a medical record in order to get elected, there might even be a crime. I'm not sure. But the last thing you want to do is get caught at that. And the trouble with doctoring any kind of medical record or any kind of record, there's almost always somebody who knows you did it. Right? It's one of those things it's hard to do by yourself. If the doctor gives you the real record and then you publish on television the fake one, I guarantee you that doctor is going to turn to everybody he knows and say, wait a minute, that's the fake one. That's not the one I gave her. Unless he mysteriously dies in a barbell accident or something. Records are under audit. Yeah. I haven't seen the Emerson polls. What do they say? Close race. There we go. So, is it true that each new poll that comes out shows Trump getting closer? I'm in Los Angeles right now. I just came down just for that taping. I'll be there in a couple hours. And that's going to be fun. How do I like my eggs? I like my eggs still in the chicken, where they belong. Why are most of my supporters? Alex Jones said Sandy Hook didn't happen. Did he really say that? I wouldn't. The average is useless, right? If polls are changing quickly, the average is the most misleading poll. I would say, if you're going to take an average, you should take an average of the maybe 3 most recent, or maybe only the ones in the last 1 week or last 2 weeks. Trump will win in a landslide. That's my prediction, yes. Pepe Scope. I still don't know what that Pepe the Frog thing is all about. Is it just a racist thing? Is it an alt-right thing? Is it a Trump thing? I have no idea what that is. The betting markets are the most reliable? No, they're not. The betting markets all had Trump losing the GOP nomination. This year, anyway, the polls are a little less. I know Pepe is a 4chan thing, but I don't know what it means. Like when people use the Pepe icon, what are they telling the world? It's a 4chan meme? But what does it mean? It just means that you are someone who is a participant on 4chan? It means nothing. It's just funny. It's just a meme. Something can't be just a meme. It has to have some meaning. Sometimes a frog is just a frog. Seriously? Are you telling me that the Pepe the Frog means absolutely nothing? And then nobody thinks that means anything? Represents a 4chan unsociable person. So people are saying about themselves that they're politically incorrect? Is that for pro-right, alt-right jokes? Doesn't really mean, it's just style of reaction. All right, good. So the only thing I can tell, which makes me feel a lot better, is that it's not supposed to mean anything. Thank goodness. Do I watch Doctor Who? I've watched a few episodes. I can't say I'm a fan. It moves a little slowly for me. People who have not voted in the past are not polled? Is that true? Can anybody confirm that? Why would that be true? No, that's not true. That's ridiculous. Because the pollsters unless the pollsters are working from past voting polls for who they call, I would think they would call people randomly. They poll likely voters. How do they define likely? You think likely means registered? Yeah. I wonder how many people will register between now and Election Day. And by the way, here's a funny thing. A lot of you know I don't vote, and I'm not a member of a political party. In both cases, it's so I don't become biased. But I don't even know how to register. I mean, I assume there are a number of ways. There must be a paper way. There must be an online way. But it's kind of funny to me that it hasn't been put in my... The registration has not been waived in my face. Now, if you go to Snoopy's Rock the Vote, you can find links to register. I just realized I did a... This is how dumb I am. I just realized as I was saying, I don't know how people know how to vote, that a month ago I had done a public service announcement. Literally, I'm telling people what URL, just a handheld camera thing. A lot of celebrities were doing it. And I got the URL wrong, so they had to correct it. So I would make an excellent warlord. I really would. I'd be the best warlord. In fact, if things go down, let me say this to all of you. If the shit goes down and you need a warlord, and there are warlords forming around the country or around the world or whatever, I'd like to put my name forward as a progressive warlord, not the bad kind, probably not a lot of torture, try to avoid the killing if I can, really no torture, but I'd be the best warlord. Yeah, you bring the weapons. If I'm the warlord, I don't want to do the shooting myself. That's what the others are for, right? Be the bad kind? No, I'm the good kind. And you're all in, by the way. Every one of you. If you follow me on Twitter or Periscope, I officially consider you part of my warlord. What do you call it what do you call the territory that a warlord controls? Does that have a name? Facebook is people's new nation in their minds. That's interesting. We would make a great team. We're everywhere. More Republicans are registered now? Can somebody confirm that? Because I'll bet that's not the case. I thought it was more of like a 55% Democrat. Yes, no. I'd be the worst warlord. All right, you're out. Whoever said that, you're out of my empire. Somebody needs to tell me what a warlord's territory is called. It's not a kingdom. It's a warlorddom. Needs a name. More Republicans show up. There are more registered Democrats. No registration in some states. Is that true? There's no registration in some states? Lordberg. Warburg. Fiefdom? Fiefdom does sound... Is that right? What guns can you legally own? Good question. What did I not use? Well, I don't believe any of the anecdotal stuff. My take on learn hypnosis is how to observe people at a more detailed level. So you'd be looking for small changes in their posture, their mannerisms, the way they move their head, their eyes, the size of their pupils, whether they're sweating, whether they look nervous, skin tone, skin color, whether they're blushing, all that stuff. Do we keep losing? It's big time today. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sign off and then sign right back on, because I'm going to go from the shitty Wi-Fi in the hotel here to the cellular network. So I'm going to sign off. All right, let's try this. See if this is anybody. Those of you jumping on first, assuming you were on my last Periscope ended half a minute ago. It's no better. So how's this connection? Somebody says much better, better, or something better. Yeah, some of you are going to have a connection problem on your own end. Okay, good. Thank you. Much better. All right, we're using Verizon's network now. No more of this crappy hotel stuff. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm glad that's working. And thanks for telling me, by the way, so I could make the adjustment. The Weiner effect. Some of you saw the New York Post article that Huma Abedin's husband, Anthony Weiner, may or may not have been, or allegedly, is flirting online and showing pictures of his naked chest again. I would say that will have no impact whatsoever on the election. Moreover, I would say it's none of our business. Moreover, I would say, why do you assume you know what kind of agreement Anthony Weiner and his wife have? Remember, she's got some connections to Saudi Arabia, and she has some cultural influences, which would suggest that a husband who is not entirely monogamous, while it sounds like the worst thing in the world to most Western Christian ears, isn't the same to everybody. So they may actually... So unless you know what their agreement is with each other, I think it would be deeply inappropriate to assume that they have a problem with each other. Because it's entirely possible that they have it worked out and she's just saying, hey, just don't get caught. Or yeah, it's possible it's an open relationship. It's possible. Anything's possible. So while it's embarrassing and it's icky and you don't like looking at it, it's none of your business. It doesn't affect the election. You have no idea what kind of agreement they have going on. You don't know how much it bothers her. You don't know how much she knows, how much she doesn't know. Just stay out of it. Cumulative effect? No, it's just nothing. Yeah, the Weiner thing is just a weird little sideshow that means absolutely nothing to nothing. Nothing to anything. What should Trump do on immigration? Well, we'll find out on Wednesday. He's got the big immigration speech coming up. But one of the things we know is that so far he's done this great, the usual Trump thing. He creates every issue as a Rorschach test. Sort of the ink blot test where everybody sees whatever they want to see. So if you think he's going to deport all 11 million people, he's given you enough ammo to think he's going to do that. If you think he's not going to deport all 11 million people and just get rid of, let's say, the ones who've created extra crimes since they've been here, beyond the crime of coming into the country, he's given you reason to believe that will happen too. And those are opposites. So he's managed to he's managed to make it vague enough that everybody's filling it in with their hopes and dreams or fears or whatever else. And I'm not sure that that's the wrong approach right now, because it makes us talk endlessly about him. And here's what I think. I think if Trump comes up with a novel approach that's somewhere in between, ship them all home and break the families up and all that, and doing nothing, which is, let's say, or doing nothing extra beyond what we're already doing, I think it could be interesting. I think he could get people on board. I think he's finally accepted it's impractical. You think he didn't know it was impractical on day one? Yeah, actually, maybe not on day one, but somewhere around the first week. Pretty sure people mentioned to him, that's a lot of people to ship back. You might want to think about this. He was testing in his town hall? Yeah. So, what time is it, by the way? I want to make sure I'm not late for my interview. Somebody tell me the time in California so I don't have to turn off my Periscope. Do you remember when people had clocks? Seriously, people, it's 8:10 in California? Thank you. It's like I got a human clock here. Let's see, it's 8:10. I gotta be ready to go at 9-ish. I think I've got to leave. All right, thank you. Is the audio back? I think I had my finger over it. Can you not hear me now? I think I had my finger over the microphone. I've done that before. What am I doing today? So I'm in LA right now, getting ready to travel over to the studio to do the Rubin Report. And that'll be a long-form interview, YouTube-based. I'll be talking to Dave Rubin. And why do I dislike beards? It's not that I dislike beards. That comment is based on, if those of you who are not following me on Twitter don't know, that on a fairly regular basis, maybe several times a day, my critics will come to Twitter and they'll say terrible things about me. Usually they're just, they're not trying to be useful at all. It's just some kind of insult, personal insult. And I've been noticing for the past year that the majority of those people insulting me were youngish men, say around 30, with bad beards. They had beards, but they weren't good ones. They were kind of like, maybe you should rethink this beard sort of beard. So I'm not anti-beard. It's more of an observation that the people who have been coming after me on Twitter, for whatever reason, you can read into it what you want. It could be confirmation bias. It could be a totally false pattern. But when you see how many times it happens, it just becomes hilarious. So once you notice it, it just becomes funny. So I've made it a running joke. Then anytime one of the badly bearded people, as I call them, comes after me on Twitter, I retweet them and make some funny comment about their badly bearded comments. I have to have a beard because my chin is not as strong as yours. Well, that's a perfectly legitimate reason for a beard. The pattern has a name, new mail. Yeah, but that's more than the beard, right? Talk about Trump's health tweet. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit. We have some more people on here, so let me mention that again. So, if you don't know, Trump tweeted, I think it was last night, that he would release his detailed medical records if Hillary does. Now, this is a typical Trump maneuver, because it seems to me he's created two ways to win and no way to lose. That's a very Trump-like situation he likes to set up. So one way that Clinton could lose is by not releasing her health records. And if that happens, she probably loses, because people are going to say, wait a minute, Trump would do it and you wouldn't, and you're both, she's pushing 70, he's 70. It makes sense for both of you. So I think she loses if she doesn't release her health records at this point, detailed health records. The other way she could lose is if she does release her detailed health records, because they probably have something bad in them. Otherwise, why the hell wouldn't she release them, right? Now, I think if she said, look, I do have a legitimate right to some privacy, so I'll filter through, 3 doctors or, some independent doctors, let's say, and let them just take out the things that don't have a bearing on my future ability to do the job. I think that would be fair, because then the media could endlessly interview the 3 doctors and say, are you being objective? Who did you vote for? Did you really do the right job on these, deciding what is and is not relevant? And I think it would be more information than we have now, right? So if the candidates did release their records and we got to see them, even if you didn't trust the doctor, and even if you didn't trust the panel of, let's say, 3 independent doctors who removed just the embarrassing stuff and kept the stuff that mattered, I think people would have more information than they have now, and they would have more or less comfort with the candidates based on that. And I think that would be useful. In fact, it's hard to imagine anything that would be more relevant at this point than the health of these 2 people who have reached an age where almost everybody has some health problem. How many 70-year-olds have perfect health? I mean, if Trump is the only one, we should elect him emperor for life, because he somehow found some magic formula to do something that normal humans can't do. So you assume that both of them have some issues, right? Did you see that the semen guy from HuffPost disappeared? I don't think he disappeared. I'm going on the Rubin report, so you'll see that on YouTube. If there's more, yeah, I'm just shocked at the number of people on the left who are saying, if they have to release their medical records, then Trump should have to release his tax returns. How in the world do those things equal? If your medical records are a lie, you're going to fucking die. You're just going to fucking die. But if Trump has some problems with his tax returns, and for whatever reason the IRS is still okay with it, is that a big problem? Or if the IRS says, hey, this deduction's a little shady, too aggressive, pay us some back taxes. Well, then he's just every person who's a billionaire with a complicated tax return. Because somebody like that, so here's another thing that public doesn't get. If the IRS comes after somebody like Trump with the types of complicated tax returns he has, and the access he has to all the different tax avoidance schemes, because of the complexity of his operation, that gives you some more opportunity, plus good lawyers. That almost guarantees that they ought to find something that they want to reverse. They're not going to spend The auditors are not going to spend months looking at these returns and then say, well, it's all good. That looks good to me. Do you know how many billionaires would get away with that? None. Certainly if they're in the construction industry and they have this big diversified portfolio, because there's no way in the world Trump knows what's going on with all of his properties, and there's no way he knows all the deductions his accountants collectively have looked at and filtered toward whoever his head accountant is, who then pass it on to his tax attorneys and tax accountants, both of them not knowing what the other one did. So the odds of Trump having no problems in his tax returns are exactly the same as Carl Icahn having no problems, Bill Gates having no problems. It's the same as they all have problems. At some level of complexity, the auditors will always find something wrong, even if it's just a mistake. If I were audited tomorrow, which by the way is unlikely, because I pay the maximum tax and I have virtually no deductions of any importance. I don't even have a mortgage. So people like me tend to not get audited, because it would be a waste of time for the auditors. If you're already paying the maximum tax rate, what would really be the point of auditing that person? But rich people in general, who have complicated lives and lots of deductions, which is more typical, they all have problems in their tax returns. They all have mistakes, and they're 100% of complicated tax returns have mistakes. All of them, every one of them. So if you found out that Trump's tax returns had some mistakes, right? If he were not running for president, you'd say, oh, it's complicated tax returns. They all have mistakes. That's normal. But because he's running for president, it wouldn't play out that way. You'd say, what? There's a mistake on this tax return? Obviously, it's a scam. He's trying to get away with something. I remember a good friend of mine years ago. He was doing his own taxes, which was, they weren't terribly complicated, but he reached a point where there was something that could legitimately be interpreted two different ways, based on the code, the tax code. One way said he could do it, and the other way, also written in the code, said he couldn't do it. I forget what the specifics were, or it was ambiguous. And so he asked one of his smartest friends, a guy with Ivy League college, finance education, who had been working as a hedge fund, operator for years, commercial banker or a investment banker type. And he said, here's my two tax situations. IRS rules look like I could do it, take this deduction, but there's another part that says maybe I couldn't. Which way should I go? And his friend gave him this advice, and this is all you need to know about the IRS. His friend gave him this advice. Pick the one that makes you pay the least taxes. That's it. That was the end of the story. And I'll tell you why that advice is brilliant. Because if he got audited, all he would have to say is, here's the IRS rule that I followed. And then the IRS may say, oh, okay, that's okay. Or more likely, they'll say, well, yeah, it was a little ambiguous, but this other rule is the one that is superior in this case, so you're going to have to pay some back taxes. That's not illegal, right? There's nothing illegal about that. If somebody makes a good faith effort to interpret the IRS tax code, and even if their deduction is aggressive, even if it's sort of a reach, totally legal. They just need a tax attorney to say, here was my theory. This isn't crazy. And then the IRS says, I disagree, but it wasn't crazy, right? It wasn't crazy. So we're not going to penalize you except for maybe some back taxes or something. You're not going to go to jail. But here's the thing. So what I'm describing is just normal life for a billionaire. There's always mistakes in the tax returns. There's always aggressive things that the IRS may say, we interpret this three different ways. Today, this auditor is interpreting it this way. This one went against you. When the public sees that, all they're going to think is, tax cheater, look at that guy. But anybody who knows anything about taxes, and anybody who's ever been rich, and anybody who's ever been audited, and anybody who knows anything about the IRS knows that it's just normal business. Yeah, it's crazy complicated. Taxes are. It is, even at my level. So if you imagine my tax returns are, let's say, 10 times more complicated than the average person who's got a W-2. So I would imagine there got to be mistakes in my tax returns. I mean, they're unintentional and not ones I would even know about. But well, actually, I could go further than that. I would say that the IRS has actually caught mistakes of mine. I would say it because it's true. The IRS has caught mistakes on my tax returns, and rather than audit, they just say, "Hey, you did this wrong. You owe us some more money." I think that's happened to me half a dozen times, and it's all just routine, right? It's there's no risk of going to jail or anything like that because there's so many mistakes on so many tax returns. It would be bigger than deporting 11 million people. You'd be putting 30 million people in jail if every time you made a mistake on a tax return you had to go to jail. So I mean, anybody with a complicated return is getting notes from the IRS. I probably get one every few months. And by the way, half of the time the mistakes are on their end. No, more than that. Way more than half the time. I'd say 75% of the time the mistakes are on the IRS's end. That they've actually interpreted their own rules wrong, or they missed something, or we did something right but they didn't know it, or they forgot a box was checked, or some damn thing. Kaepernick. I saw just a short thing about Kaepernick not standing up during the Pledge of Allegiance, but I didn't hear what his issue was. What was Kaepernick's? He's the quarterback guy. What was his issue that made him protest by not standing? Police brutality and oppression. Black Lives Matter. Cops killing. Okay. So here's my, now that I know that, so I don't know the details of the story, but I'll give you just a quick idea. He is angry at both Hillary. While I prefer that people show respect for the country, as most of you do, it's a very effective thing to do. Now keep in mind that when somebody either burns a flag or in his case doesn't stand during the Pledge of Allegiance, that's someone who's literally risking his life, his safety, and his career to make a point. And I have to tell you, I respect that because it was a measured communication technique. So you can forget about, you can ignore for a moment the content of his message if you're asking yourself, was that an appropriate mechanism to make a statement? And I would say if you're talking about something that's as serious as life and death, and the country's not moving in the direction you want, that is an appropriate, it's an inappropriate statement that is very effective because of its inappropriateness. The fact that it offends you is why it works. Let's have a little less racism on here, please. I don't think Julian's a master persuader, but he does have a lot of information that will change people's minds. He converted to Islam, is that true? Is Obamacare going to play a role in the election? I don't know. Nobody really understands Obamacare. But I don't think they're afraid of it. Block. How do you improve memory? Go to Amazon.com and look for and just search on memory books. There's tons of them. How many people question the unified media? They're not really unified, are you? Yeah, I'm going to have to. Let's see, 8:25. I'm pretty ready. I could be ready to go in 5 minutes. So, Oh, really? Oh, Kaepernick. Interesting. So, regardless of what you think of his Kaepernick's politics or the message, I do think that if somebody does something that radical, which is radical in this country anyway, to not stand during the Pledge of Allegiance if you're a famous athlete, or to burn the flag in public, those are statements where people are sacrificing their life and their career because they think the message is important enough. I don't hate those people. And by the way, um, it, my opinion on flag burning is I prefer that it not be burned under normal circumstances, as most Americans would. I do feel viscerally offended by it, but that's why they do it. All right? I mean, when you see a flag burned, if you're a typical American, um, it hurts. It's almost physically painful because we're so conditioned to be, to wrap our identity around the flag. But at the same token, if somebody's willing to risk their life and their career to make a point, because that's what they're doing, and maybe in the old days they weren't risking their career, but they're definitely doing it now because it's all filmed and it stays there forever. Um, I think you have to respect the message even if you completely disagree with it. So I have complete respect for his message. I have complete respect for the way he did it because it was a personal risk which he took in his view. Again, you can disagree with this, but in his view, he did it for the country. All right? So if somebody risks their life and their reputation and their career, and even puts his family at risk to some degree, and they do it for what they feel is the benefit of the country, it's hard to hate that, even if you disagree with every part of it, even if you think he's brainwashed, even if you think, no matter what you think about the message, you got to respect the person who sent it. On some level, that was brave. Or he did it for Islam. I didn't hear the message, but just based on what I've heard here, it didn't sound like that was the case. Yeah, you can respect the way he did it without respecting the message, sure. Yeah, my view on burning the flag is this. I don't want to live in a country or respect a flag that the citizens can't burn, right? I don't want to live in a country where the citizens can't burn a flag. Now, personally, I hope that they don't. One would hope that things are going well, people respect the country, respect the flag. But if you couldn't burn a flag, like you went to jail for it, would you want to live in that country? I wouldn't. Just announced Huma and Weiner got separated? Is that true? Huh. Can somebody, it is true. Well, gosh, that sucks for them. I feel sorry for her. You know who I feel sorry for is everybody who's within the blast range of either candidate. Because, there's no adult there's no adult with a complicated, interesting life, especially in politics of any way, who doesn't have so much in their past that would be terrible that they couldn't, handle the scrutiny of this. So I think there's a lot of victims here, and I gotta say, whoever outed Weiner, was it the New York Post? They're just fucking assholes. Because that is not anybody's business but theirs. Yeah, I'm not defending anything he did or anything anybody else did, but whoever outed them is, I think, the criminal here. What they did is between them, but what the New York Post did, that's between us. That's between us and them, us and the New York Post. And I'll tell you my opinion. I think the New York Post is scum for doing that. CNN edited a Trump tweet? Really? It was the Girl, and Daily Mail had it first, I think. Daily Mail? Okay. In that case, well, that doesn't make it right for the New York Post. Well, thank you. Am I high? No, it's 8:15 in the morning. I'm going on TV in a little while, or at least YouTube TV. All right. No wake and bake today. Not allowing convicts to vote is racist. Probably. Why is it that convicts can't vote anyway? You know, if you paid your dues, you paid your dues, right? I say convicts should vote. And by the way, how many convicts are going to vote? You know, is that a big problem? InfoWars, I haven't arranged anything yet. I did respond belatedly and say that I'd like to do the show. She's had enough wiener. Oh, man. All right. Thanks, Caroline. And yeah, I'll still do InfoWars, Alex Jones, if they still want me, if we can schedule it. You know, for a while I was thinking, you know, should I go on a show that is taking so much heat for promoting conspiracy theories and the such? And then I thought to myself, I don't like being judged by association. So I'm going to intentionally associate with them because I don't like anybody telling me who I can associate with. You know, I'm going to say what I feel like saying. Fuck everybody else. And if people hate it, I'm not sure I'm not sure I care about that. The interview today, you know, that's a good question. I don't know if they're live. I know that they're recorded and they'll be on YouTube forever, but I don't know I doubt it's live. I think there's probably some editing. Don't do Milo? What's that mean? So I think the UMA separation thing is almost politically necessary because you have to say because she doesn't want to answer the questions. It would make her look terrible if she didn't act in some way. So the separation might last only until November, you know. My guess is that if Uba forgave him once, she may forgive him again. But at the moment, she needs to put some distance there. I'll be on the Rubin Report. Please debunk Alex Jones on his own show. You know I will, if there's anything to debunk. But it's not like I have, you know, I don't have data. If Peter Thiel was running a department, you mean like a cabinet thing? I think it would depend entirely. I mean, it's too general a question. I'll answer the question, would I want to work for Peter Thiel or work with him, whichever way it goes? I would say yes. But the question is, what would inspire me to want to quit my job to work on something else? I can't imagine it. Would you work to create anti-ISIS propaganda? Only in one sense. If you were trying to create anti-ISIS persuasion, you would need a bunch of ideas to seed the engine, as you will. So once you have the ideas, you test them roughly in the order that you think they have potential. So if I could get people to understand that they could A/B test messages, and they could test as small populations, even prisoners, and hook them up to brain monitors, you could probably figure out which messages are most important. So if people understand that, then I've already done what I can do. But beyond that, I'd be happy to suggest things with other people, but I have no reason to think I would be the best at that. All right, I'm going to take off, get ready for business. I think Thiel for Department of Transportation, driverless vehicles. Wouldn't that be interesting? I don't know that Peter Thiel has any interest in running some specific department. All right, take care, everybody.